What if the person you are today is not the person you were meant to become? Not because there's something wrong with you, not because you're broken, but because buried underneath your fears and your doubts, your habits, and your comforts is a version of yourself that you have never fully met. Nowadays, most people, or everybody really, seems to be trying to figure out who they are. I think the better question is, who are you capable of becoming? Throughout history, people who change themselves and change the world, they're not people who magically found confidence. They're people who built themselves through struggle. They became. Marcus Aurelius was not born as a perfect man of great wisdom. He was a Roman emperor who was carrying the weight of an entire empire. And he was constantly reminding himself to control what he could, endure the things that he couldn't, right? Endure the things that he needed to endure and couldn't change, and become the person that his responsibilities demanded. In his personal journal that is now Meditations, Marcus wrote about the importance of not being trapped by who you have been. The idea is simple. You're not your past, you're not your mistakes, you're not the opinions that others have placed on you. You are the person you choose to become through your actions. But there's something uncomfortable about that, about becoming. It requires that you admit that the person you are today is not enough. And that's where most people get stuck. People want the reward of transformation without the discomfort that comes along with it. They want to feel confident before they ever even take action, before they ever even try. Most people these days are so afraid of failure, they they're never even willing to see if they could succeed. They want proof that they're capable before they attempt something difficult. But confidence doesn't come first. Confidence is the result. Think about any skill you've ever developed. Nobody's born knowing how to speak confidently, lead others, create something meaningful, overcome fear. The first time you go to the gym, you feel weak. If you've ever tried to start a business or talk to somebody who has, the first time someone starts a business, you obviously feel inexperienced. The first time someone stands up to share their ideas, they're going to feel exposed. But every person who becomes great starts as somebody who's not yet great. And the gap between where you are and where you want to be, who you are and who you want to become, that gap is crossed, bridged through action. This is something that Carl Jung understood and talked about a lot. Jung believed the purpose of life was not simply to have happiness or comfort, but individuation and to become your true self. But becoming yourself isn't passive. It requires confronting the parts of yourself that you avoid, your weaknesses, your fears, your insecurities, the parts of yourself that you would rather hide. And he called this the shadow, the unconscious parts of ourselves that we refuse to acknowledge. And the funny thing is, and if I think one of the books that simplifies this idea the best, in my opinion, is The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. But it's exactly that. Um, a lot of these things that we're running from, they contain the greatest opportunity for growth. So the person who fears failure the most, they are somebody who can learn courage. The person who struggles with insecurity, they can become someone who develops incredible self-awareness. The person who is always underestimated can become someone who refuses to underestimate themselves. And that's why so many of these great stories and people that we look up to in history, these are stories of transformation. The Count of Monte Cristo by Dumas. I know how to pronounce the name. I've never seen the movie, but I'm reading the book right now. Dante, that's how I read it. He starts as an innocent young man whose life is destroyed by betrayal. He loses his freedom, his future, spends years imprisoned, but in that prison, he learns, he studies, he transforms, and he leaves a different person. His suffering becomes the forge that created him. And that idea is everywhere. I don't know if any of you guys have played Dark Souls, but that game is tough and you get wrecked all the time. You're always dying and being defeated, and the world is brutal. And unless you've spent like hundreds of hours, you expect failure. But the entire message of the game is kind of built around that idea. It's not how many times you fail, how many times you die. It's how many times you get back up, right? Naruto is a similar idea. I mean, he's mocked, he's ignored, and he's considered a failure. But his journey isn't about discovering he was secretly powerful all along. Although I guess in some ways he did find out, right, that he had like more chakra reserve than most people. But his journey is about becoming someone worthy of the dream that he refused to let go of. The transformation comes through persistence, through discipline, suffering, and maybe that's the truth that most people avoid. You don't find yourself, you create yourself. Every decision you make, every time you go to the gym, every time you do something hard, you are making a vote for the person that you are becoming. Self-confidence isn't created by convincing yourself you're amazing. It's created by collecting evidence. Evidence that you can rely on yourself, evidence that you can handle difficulty, evidence that you're someone who does what they say they'll do. The person that you admire is not a different species. They're someone who kept going through the moments when becoming, transforming felt impossible. So maybe the question again isn't, am I good enough? Maybe the question is, what kind of person am I willing to become? Somewhere ahead of you is a version of yourself who is stronger, wiser, and more capable. But you don't become that person by wishing. That person doesn't become reality by wishing. They're built one choice, one challenge, one day at a time. And that future version of you is waiting. The only question is, are you ready to become them?